Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar with the Retail Bakers of America. My name is Marissa Sertachvili, and I'm the Education Director with the RBA. For those who are not familiar, the Retail Bakers of America is a national nonprofit membership-based association that supports the retail baking industry. We offer education, community, and resources to bakers across the country. Today, I am very excited to be here with Jasmine Parks Papadopoulos, who is with a very special organization called Chow, which stands for Culinary Hospitality Outreach and Wellness. This organization does so much great work to support mental health in the hospitality industry, which we know is a year-round issue for all parts of the industry, as well as our retail bakers, but especially with the pressures of the holidays coming up. It is Chow's mission to support wellness within the hospitality industry and improve the lives of our industry, our community, through shared stories, skills, and resources. Jasmine is here with us today to share some of those resources with the RBA, and we are so excited to have you here, Jasmine.
I'm so excited to be here. I want to personally thank you on behalf of everybody at Chow, because when we are welcomed into these rooms and we are given a platform to talk about what we do, this is how we grow the movement of a sustainable workforce. So we are so grateful for your support.
Great to have you.
Thank you. So I will start by sharing my screen and walking us through a little bit about, can you see this okay, Marissa?
Yes, perfect.
Walking us through a little bit about Chow, how we got started, what kind of needs we see and hear about in our community, and how we try to meet that need. Chow is a fairly young nonprofit. We just celebrated our 5th anniversary, and we started very, very small. Our founder, John Hinman, is a local baker, local to Denver, Colorado, who in the industry had struggled very much with substance misuse, and found that when he started his recovery journey and returned to the food, beverage, hospitality industry in Denver, that it was very difficult for him to integrate. And he saw a lot of the challenges that he was facing before his recovery journey still very present in the industry. So what started off as a very small meeting in his bakery ended up being the Chow that we know today, which is an incredible resource that has grown exponentially due to the pandemic. We are fully accessible. Even though we are based out of Denver, Colorado, we are fully accessible from anywhere in the world. And we are incredibly fortunate to have folks participating in our community programming from places like Canada, Australia, Portugal. So this is a warm invitation to anyone listening that Chow is absolutely wherever you are, even though we are physically currently in Colorado. So like you said, Marissa, our mission is essentially to support wellness within the hospitality industry. What that means to us is that we focus on what we like to call the big 3 of the supports that we are putting in place. That means that we are geared towards mental health, substance misuse, and overall wellness. And we do this with shared story, skills, and resources. What we mean by that is that we talk primarily about the challenges that we face. We meet those challenges with vocationally specific tools, because we recognize that so many of these challenges are challenges that we face in our professional industry that may not be linear to the human experience that folks in other professional industries are having. And we like to bolster this with skills. So our programming involves one-on-one support. It involves resource brokering as well as education, because we recognize that we can't fully know where we are headed if we don't know where we are currently. So when we say food, beverage, hospitality industry, our definition is huge and inclusive. To us, that includes industry writers and culinary students and bakers and busboys and dishwashers. It means that if you are working in a hotel and you are manning the front desk, you are also food, beverage, hospitality. We brought in this definition of food, beverage, hospitality industry because we believe like I said, the threads of the challenges that we face are largely similar. And so we understand that if we can band together under an inclusive umbrella definition, we meet more folks and we can explain to them how we choose to meet these challenges with vocationally specific resources. So we mentioned the food, beverage, hospitality industry and these numbers primarily because we know that the food, beverage, hospitality industry is one of the professional sectors that is faced with incredible growth. It is anticipated that by 2030, in some capacity, around 17.2 million people will have worked in the food, beverage, hospitality industry. And this is using the very mainstream definition of food, beverage, hospitality, which is, are you a baker? Are you a chef? Do you work for a restaurant? Do you work for a hotel? We would probably wager that based on our definition, that number is larger than 17.2 million because it's a lot more comprehensive. And the reason why this number is significant is because currently, right now, if every single food, beverage, hospitality worker were to seek out a clinical mental health provider that was licensed and operational, those clinical mental health providers would fill up their docket with hospitality workers, and we would still outnumber them 29 times over. That means that the food, beverage, hospitality industry is growing at a rate that the mental health space is not able to meet. So this is why we like to say that Chow is us helping us. We rely strongly on the peer support model, which means empowering everyone with the same resources, skills, and coping skills so that we can create almost like a sustainable workforce based on a buddy system. I look out for you, you look out for me, and we try to eliminate that almost a parentification of managers that is very well known and established in a hierarchical field like the food, beverage, hospitality industry. So the way that we see it, the way that we recognize the needs of our community as a listening organization and nonprofit is that the contributing factors to poor mental health for folks in our industry is an overall scarcity mindset, which we recognize, this belief that there will never be enough, as well as this focus on the bottom line. It is incredibly hard to care for the wellness of employees when we have a bottom line to meet. We are one of the only industries that's focused on food cost, right? We have to constantly cut corners. We have a lot of things playing at the same time, a lot of values playing at the same time. And one of them is the overproduction, right? Which makes it incredibly hard for us to focus on individuals. On top of that, we are, especially in independently owned businesses, small restaurants, mom and pop businesses, there's not a lot of benefits, right? Kitchen employees are often finding themselves in unconventional agreements. There's not a lot of protection or benefits. And we see this in independently owned and operated restaurants. And it makes... it creates a lack of psychological safety in your job, which has its own long-term effects. On top of that, we have a very high employment turnover. The pandemic has managed to uncover a very significant blind spot, which is that the majority of us continued to work. I was a person who worked during the pandemic. We were not necessarily in certain spaces met with the same type of compensation that other folks who were considered essential workers were met with. And so on top of there being very few repercussions, for certain behaviors in the hospitality industry, because of this scarcity mindset centered around staffing, it makes communication incredibly difficult. A lot of the things that we are hearing nowadays is that it's incredibly hard to communicate with people because folks are understaffed. So they don't have the resources to talk to people, and they don't want to have challenging conversations with their employees or with their peers, because businesses need to continue to be staffed. On top of that, most independently owned organizations don't have human resources. We're just doing our best to navigating really challenging conversations and challenging situations without having an established skill set with which to have those conversations. As well as we recognize that Patrick Mulvaney, who is the head of another nonprofit called I Got Your Back, they do work that is very similar to Chow's, based out of California. He poses a very, very important question. And he says, did folks come to us in the industry broken, or did we break them when they got here? And this is just a nod to the fact that there are so many pre-existing mental health challenges that folks face that do work in the industry. And these are exacerbated by the fact that we don't work typical hours with other people. So there's an element of isolation and marginalization there, simply because majority of people in the food, beverage, hospitality industry don't work a 9 to 5. So a lot of times their social wellness ends up suffering simply because they can't hang out with their group of friends. And if they work at a restaurant, they'll end up leaving the restaurant at, midnight when everyone else is asleep. So there's this significant point of isolation, which is incredibly challenging for people to deal with on a one-on-one basis, as well as little to no access to medical or mental health care, which is, we're seeing such a great turnaround of this. We're seeing incredible businesses and organizations recognizing that mental health is physical health, is as important as physical health, and that there need to be systems of support there. But these are incredibly new conversations, and everyone is navigating them to the best of their ability, but they are new conversations. So a lot of times it's incredibly challenging to figure out what next steps are. We also have incredibly high levels of stress that are largely moderated by hectic period, slow period, hectic period, slow period, which are met with little incentive for self-care. I can speak from personal experience. The less I focused on my mental health and on my self-care when I was in the industry as an executive chef, the better my career was doing. When I was able to completely throw myself into my work, the rest of the areas of my life would suffer, like my family and myself and my hobbies and my social circle. But that's when I started doing the best at work, because I was the first one to clock in and the last one to clock out. And that was largely recognized with so much positive praise in my surroundings. That's a very incongruous situation for folks to find themselves in. I know I'm not doing well, but I'm being praised and I'm being met with high achievement, as well as what I believe is one of the most important things on this list is the little representation in the media until recently. Until recently, with the boost of cooking shows and celebrity chefs, we weren't accurately represented in the media. In fact, I would challenge, the thing that I like to do during this presentation is have folks put their hands up and let me know if Gordon Ramsay is not the first person they thought of when I said representation in the media. And we all know and recognize that Gordon Ramsay has very challenging behaviors and difficult to deal with behaviors in his TV shows that can largely be called abuse. And so this idea that we glorify the hustle and the grind keeps us hustling and grinding. There's this idea that, we hold all of the recipes. We are the memory makers. We are constantly on call. We have hectic downtime. We have hectic periods based with downtime. These things are glamorized in the media, and they continue to reaffirm this belief that we live in a marginalized part of society. On top of that, if you look at the list in front of you, this information was collated in 2018. So this is pre-pandemic. Pre-pandemic, we were ranking #1 in substance use disorder in accommodations and food services. And if you look at the businesses that rank right below us, these are not particularly easy jobs to work. Mining, retail trade, agriculture. I once did this presentation for someone and had a person put their hand up and say, "We drink more than farmers." We drink more than farmers, which is, really, really difficult to sit with. This information is difficult to sit with, because if this is what these numbers look like in 2018, after periods of isolation and a worldwide pandemic that has continued to just make the human experience more difficult, we can probably imagine that we're still sitting there at #1. And so what we want at Chow is we want to create a sustainable workforce. And what that means to us is that we don't want to see folks leaving the industry. Chow is largely staffed by industry veterans like myself, who ended up leaving the industry because they could not find, and I will speak from personal experience on this one, I could not find ways to stay in the industry and stay well and continue to be well. And so I left. So we built this as a labor of love, bringing in folks who are still in the industry, that are boots on the ground, people who still have their finger on the pulse of the current food, beverage, hospitality industry, so that we can meet the needs of our community in a way that is relevant and timely, accessible, and needed primarily. And so we recognize that this is a big part of it: marginalization, isolation, different work schedules, these structures that we have in place that are not mainstream to other professional fields. So how do we rise to meet these needs? We start by offering the main aspect of our programming, which is Chow discussion groups, which are largely based on a peer support model. What that means to us is that these rooms are moderated. They are accessible whether in person or on Zoom. We have 8 of them a week. We have dedicated spaces for men and women, as well as meetings in Spanish. And what this means is that these rooms are populated by 2 people. One of them is called an expos, who is kind of mediating the conversation, taking the temperatures of the room and extrapolating a theme for the conversation that is going to be had on that day, as well as a host who is there to set the space and greet everyone there and give them the relevant information about Chow that they need before leaving. And all of our meetings begin with our preamble, which is a greeting to everyone in the room, letting them know why we're here and that we're welcome, that you're welcome, and that we're glad you're here and we can continue together. And then what we do is we engage in a temperature take of the room. We do this because we know that we, as folks who work with food, often have more words to describe our food than we have for our feelings. For our feelings, we reserve words like sad, mad, glad, tired, whereas we have so many descriptors, phenomenal adjectives that we throw around for food. And so this check-in is a temperature take where we check in on a scale of rare to well done. Rare meaning I'm juicy, full of life, able to take on more heat. Well done meaning joyless, flavorless, feels like we've been on the grill for far too long. This is not a judgmental exercise. This is just an intentional pause where we stop for a moment and we have to check in with our bodies and our feelings to see where we are for the rest of the day. We do this because we know that often in our periods of long shifts on our feet during the busy period, days can go by without us checking in with ourselves. It becomes impossible to check in with other people if we don't primarily know how to check in with ourselves and intentionally take our temperature to see where we are. On top of our group discussion meetings, we offer a free mental health course. This is a skills-based training. And what we do is we've separated our mental health course into 4 kind of units. We start with mental health, how it shows up in the food, beverage, hospitality industry, how we can recognize it and support ourselves and the folks around us. Substance misuse, how it shows up, how we can support ourselves and the folks around us. Assertive communication, how do we make sure that we know our style of communication and that we are communicating effectively in healthful ways with the folks around us, as well as an overall self-service kind of check-in. Self-service is what we like to call self-care, because we recognize that self-care can be kind of a polarizing term to our industry, and that self-care looks a little bit different for us because a lot of times we don't have the option to schedule a 30-minute break or take a mental health day or not work on our feet. We don't have that option if we have a scheduled 12-hour shift coming up where we know we have to get things done in that shift before we go home. And so what self-service means to us is understanding what the current framework for our life is and how can we take actionable, measurable steps to improve those in a way that is guaranteed to offer long-term results, and not just almost like a New Year's resolution type of feel to self-care, just long-term self-service for ourselves. The free mental health course is there because we believe that education is going to be a very large component in shifting us towards that sustainable workforce. We want folks to know exactly where we are so that we can know where we're going, and recognizing, giving us the tools and the language, as well as the resources. This course is packed with resources, as well as the resources to know where we can get the supports that we need. Chow also functions as a resource broker. This is very, very important to us. What that means is that you can go to the Chow webpage, that is www.chowco.org, and you can go to our resource tab, and you have access there to a vetted list of all of the vocationally specific resources that we partner with. That means that either you can do a scroll through by yourself, or there's a little note at the top that says, if you are looking for a specific resource for a challenge that you might be facing in your personal life, please reach out to us and we will get you connected to the right place. So you can fill out a contact us form and you can say, my name is Jasmine. I work in the food, beverage, hospitality industry. And even though I have a full-time job, I am experiencing issues with budgeting my finances. I'm experiencing issues with houselessness. I'm experiencing issues with domestic violence. And we recognize that Chow may not have developed programming around the challenge that you are facing, but we will do a warm handover to another organization that can get you set up in the right place. And all of this is free of charge. It is completely anonymous. It is not shared with employers or employees. It is just a person coming to us to be connected to the right service with a warm handover, which is very important to us because we recognize that a lot of times filling out forms and Googling things yourself can be an incredibly overwhelming process. So having somebody who can physically sit with you, we can sit with you on a Zoom call while you fill out all of the forms necessary and just sit with you while you fill those in and make sure that somebody is there to pick up the phone in a week to ask if you've been connected to a real person on the other side of that resource you requested, we believe offers additional support that is instrumental to industry wellness. We have also developed a workbook for wellness. This is almost like a self-led workbook that folks can learn about the 8 dimensions of wellness, which is largely recognized by Mental Health America as an intersectional overview of how we are well. It includes our financial, occupational, emotional wellness, and we look at all of those 8 individually and how they might look specifically in the industry and how we can make small changes in each of those areas to create an overall system of wellness. We also have a workplace wellness toolkit. This is currently live and free on our website. It is a downloadable PDF that we cannot recommend enough to any organization or community that believes that they can benefit from it. Chow has hosted a variety of listening tours throughout the state of Colorado, and what we did was ask owners, operators, and managers what they believed was working within their organizations, as well as what the challenges they were facing were. We then conducted anonymous surveys and polls amongst their staff to see if we were getting the same information from both sides. And then we collated all of that information into a living document where you can scroll through, and there's a tab on the right-hand side that is delineated by 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, $5, $10, $100. And based on the monetary or energetic investment that you have on any given day, you can scroll and say, I have 5 minutes to invest in my employees' wellness today. What can I do with that? And you can go to the 5-minute section and you can find a lot of tips that you can implement in 5 minutes that you can do over a period of time so that you can see wellness improving overall in your organization. We also have printed and downloadable resource materials. We have wellness self-check cards that can be carried in a wallet, which encourage kind of our temperature take and daily check-in for folks to be able to take with them when they are not attending Chow meetings, as well as an employee assistance program, which supports the overall financial and emotional wellness of employees. On top of that, something that I would love to recommend to anyone listening is that we have a wellness blog every Friday and Monday on our website. And what we do is we work with a lot of organizations. Our resource partners is what we call them, that are listed in our resource tab. And often what they will do is they will do trainings and events and educational opportunities that are either completely free or low barrier to entry for food, beverage, hospitality workers. What we do is we piece together all of that information and we put it on our website every Friday and Monday so that folks can check in and they can find things happening near them or on Zoom that are going to be either free or very easy to access so that they continue to invest in their mental health and wellness and recovery, whether through Chow or other avenues. And I will stop sharing.
Jasmine, thank you so much for all of that fantastic information. I hope that our members and followers check out the website. Chowco.org is where people should go to check it out. Yep, so go to chowco.org to look at their resources, jump in one of their discussion groups, look at those free mental health courses that they're offering as a resource available to all of you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And feel free to check us out on social media as well. We recognize that if folks are not ready to come to a meeting, not ready to do the course yet, we are always sharing tips to support yourself on our social media. And we are big fans of meeting folks where they're at. And I would love to issue just an additional invitation to anyone listening that we have an upcoming holiday series, which are additional meetings that we do that are specifically centered around the challenging themes that we face around the holidays. Things like balancing an increased workload with family time, exploring boundaries, that are going to be running throughout November and December, also available on our website. And we would love to encourage anyone listening to join us.
Wonderful. Thank you for all that information. Also, be sure to check out the RBA website, retailbakersofamerica.org, and our events tab. And we look forward to seeing you all at future RBA events and hopefully some Chow events as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.